Well, my name is Brinsley McNamara, and welcome to the Weird Ireland Podcast. On the very first episode of Weird Ireland Podcast, I interviewed Sheela Scott, who owns a sex toy shop called Sex Chuppa. We had a great chat, but the reason we had the chat was because she owns a Victorian ivory dildo. I had to know the story of this artifact. If you want to know that story, go back and listen to the first episode. But anyways, I asked her during the interview, has anyone ever 3D scanned this artifact to preserve it? The reason I asked was because I heard of digital historians who use 3D scanning technology to preserve artifacts digitally for posterity. Anyways, Sheela said, yes, Gary Dempsey scammed it, because Gary is one of these, I hope I didn't invent the term, or are using an incorrect one, digital historian or digital archiver, I'm not sure which one to use, who uses 3D scanning technology to create a digital replica of historic artifacts that can be studied by researchers who don't have IRL contact to the item, or maybe create a model of the piece of history that may outlive the thing itself. I was mad to learn more about this niche area of cyber archaeology, which maybe isn't the right term either, but sounds cool, so I thought I'd say it. Fortunately for myself and for you listening, sitting right across from me right now to talk about this topic is Gary Dempsey himself. How are you doing today, Gary?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Well, no, thank you in a way for inviting us because, we came up here anyways. You're working. Where are we right now? We're in, what building is this we're in? Where are we?
We are in the Atlantic Technical University, Galway City, on the Well Park campus. So it's where the Centre of Creative Arts and Media is, where we do film, TV, animation, game design, creative media storytelling, textiles design, product design. It's kind of all the creative aspects of what we teach across Atlantic Technical University, or ATU, as it's much easier to say.
I wanted to mention, actually, when I first contacted you by email, speaking of names that roll off the tongue, I accidentally called Digital Heritage Age Digital Heritage Ireland. Is that like, it's just that it just rolled off the tongue easier? Is that something that happens often?
No, I think when we came up with the idea, It was myself and Orla Peach Power. We'd met during kind of training workshops that I was delivering, and we wanted to do something with digital archaeology, digital heritage. And we were talking around that time about this idea of the new digital heritage age. So everything that we'd done kind of analog in the past, we were now digitizing records or recording things on sites. So it seemed great at the time. And then when we set up the account, we realized heritage has AGE at the end. So now we have heritage age kind of. So yeah, we just say DHA or DHH. That's kind of our shorthand for it these days.
And let's go into like what exactly digital, for anyone listening who's interested, what exactly does digital heritage age do? Did I describe it okay enough in the intro, or?
Yeah, it's quite a broad field. We focus on the digitization or 3D scanning of heritage artifacts. And very much that's our aspect of digital heritage. So digital heritage is broad. Anything that is created digitally has a heritage behind us, or anything that is historic that you scan or you photocopy, that has a digital record. But our aspect of it is to use things like photogrammetry or laser scanning to make a 3D replica of that object. Some people would call it preservation. I'm not a big fan of the term because the building you scan or the object you scan can still get destroyed. You just have a digital record. So I guess we're 3D digital archivists. That's kind of what we set ourselves up to be, or what we kind of do.
I actually did later on want to go into the word preservation, because sometimes people have like different ideas what that means, but I guess you answered it there. That's interesting. So you're more an archiver, a digital archiver.
Yeah. So like, if there's a lot of companies around the world that do digital preservation, and they talk about the term preservation. It always irks me because we're not really preserving anything apart from a record. So the same way you can go and find a book from the 1800s, there's a digital copy now on Google Books or on the Internet Archive. Hopefully in 100 years' time, there will be a digital model of something we scanned on a database online that is still accessible to the public. But there's nothing to say that won't disappear. There's nothing to say our preservation won't actually disappear over time.
And what kind of records or artifacts do you create? Is it of, I mean, in the case of Shauna's ivory dildo, it was a Victorian.
Yeah.
I would use the word artifact.
It is, and it's a really interesting artifact because it's something that's not talked about a lot. So myself and Orla were looking for a key project to pin digital heritage age on, and we chose Sheela and the Gigs. So these very, very feminist objects that you find on churches and castles in Ireland, basically nude female figures, often in kind of contorted poses. Some people call them grotesque. Some people say they're probably protection marks. Some people say they're fertility symbols. Nobody really knows. And through that project, we started to get more into kind of feminist archaeology and feminist agendas or feminist kind of ideology. And we saw Shauna's project, or what she was buying and preserving for the country. And not many people want to talk about that aspect. I mean, we're talking about something in the Victorian period that is literally an ivory carved penis that was sent back to somebody as a love token. So it's from India, as far as I know, shipped back and made into this lovely little box that was made in Dublin. So we can tell where the box was made, but really carefully put together and preserved by that family for a long time before it was sold in an auction. So that aspect of the Victorians, who were very much against sex, and even when it came to Sheela and the Gigs, they were like, oh, these dirty fertility symbols, these dirty idols. Their kind of self-reflection on sex and sexuality was something that privately they were going back and reading copies of the Kama Sutra or sending each other ivory dildos in the post. So
I will say actually Shameen is here, by the way, too. I will say hi. There is how are you doing today?
I'm all right. Yeah.
Good to hear. This ivory dildo actually does come in a box. It almost looks like a casket, an original one. And I will say, at least Shauna said to me, she doesn't think it was ever actually used. She thinks it was a joke. It was like a joke present or something like that, which she claims was a common thing in the Victorian era.
Yeah, no, it possibly was. There's some cute little thing between a couple going on with it, but you can it's basically just shaped like a penis. It has a little top on it, so you not at the head, but at the base. There's a little kind of concealed compartment, and I think the idea was you would put a love token in there, so a lock of hair or something. We don't know enough about it, but there is a drawer, at least there was a drawer in the British Museum that was just Victorian sex toys.
Really?
So a lot of them would have been used in the medical industry. So there was a lot of crazy Victorian men who thought that women basically needed to stimulate themselves to kind of get rid of their hyper anxiety, and they invented these things. So the idea of the dildo kind of comes from this medical treatment, quite problematic, and you probably do want to put it in the drawer and put it away. But if we don't really talk about these things, then we can't really explore the past truly. So there is a reason behind them. They were developed, they were created, and they were used probably as well. So not this one, because it would have been quite not dangerous to use it, but
it's pretty big.
It's quite porous.
It's pretty big, I'm pretty sure, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About the size of your microphone. Yeah. To give the listeners, I was going to go, it's this big, but it's about the size of an average microphone. Okay. It's quite long. It's about the size of a bottle of water.
Big boy.
So,
Yeah. Big elephant. Well, no, maybe normal sized elephant, tusk.
Yeah. So the reason it ended up in Ireland is the original auction, somebody from Canada or America bought it, and you cannot ship ivory anymore. So it's an illegal trade.
Yeah.
So because it was in Ireland, we were then able to, Shauna was able to raise money and buy it through a second auction where the original purchaser had to sell it. And what's interesting is you get a lot of auctions where you get historical artifacts for sale. Some of them are real artifacts, so we can date them, we can authenticate them, and some of them are fakes. So I've been asked to come in and review Sheela and the Gigs that have been bought. And the second you look at the picture, you know it's fake.
Yeah.
But because we're running a 3D project, we generally go and scan it and record it, do a little report on it. But there are a number of fake artifacts going around that are sold through these auctions. And somebody outside of Ireland will buy it and then realize you cannot ship that out of the country because our law is so strict. So even if it's a fake artifact, you can't ship it out because you bought it thinking it was real.
Yeah.
So
what's like a dead giveaway that something's fake artifact and someone named their shed or something?
So in terms of a stone carving, so something like a Sheela and the Gig, they'll often put what would be conceived to be pagan symbols, so like a triskel or something on it. They occur on one, maybe two Sheela and the Gigs, and we can date to the medieval period. But when you look at it, it's just a copy of that one. So based on the way the legs and the hands are posed, I can now look at them and go, that's a copy of these two melded together.
I was going to say that Sheela and the Gigs actually talk about the Sheela and the Gig project that you guys are doing. There's over 100 Sheela and the Gigs in Ireland, give or take, would you say?
Yeah, there's a few different official numbers. I think we're on about 130 now. So there's one recently found in the southeast. can't remember the name of the castle, but through this Community Monuments Fund, which is a state-run project that helps to preserve and protect historical buildings. During one of those projects in the southeast in Waterford, they discovered a decapitated one reused in the building. So it helps us to kind of date it and give an idea. So the numbers are constantly going up. I think we're about high 120s or just under 121, 131, 132. That's what I'm counting at the moment, including lost carvings.
And the funny thing is, at least I found, because there's actually a website, it's a very, very useful one. I don't know if it's associated with your project, irelandshillnagigs.org.
Yeah, it's a gentleman from Dublin who runs that, and it is very, very good.
It's very useful, yeah.
And he's visited a good few of them, so he's got images of them all. And he started recording the non-official ones, so the fake ones or the modern ones.
Right.
And he's recorded a few of those, and we thought, well, that's actually quite interesting, because technically they're not fake, they're a real carving.
Yeah.
It's just a modern version of that. So we started doing that with the project as well, and we found a couple more along the way. We set out on that project to find new carvings and to find some missing carvings. And to this date, we found 3 new carvings. Some of them purely by accident, and some people then would just ring us up and say, we have this thing, could you come and have a look at it? We haven't identified any of the missing ones yet, but we're pretty much on the trail of 2 or 3 kind of famous missing carvings at the moment.
And the funny thing is, at least I found that despite them all being the same theme of being a female exhibitionist figure, nude exhibitionist figure, they all look pretty different. So if somebody's making a fake one, if you see it and it looks like one you've already seen, you know which one it is. The one in outside Mullingar town in Old Tottenham Church, there's a brilliant one there. It doesn't look like any other one I've seen. It's just very different looking. And if somebody made a knockoff of that, I know that's the one in Tottenham Church. Yeah.
It's like the people who are making copies, they just seem to Google us and then pick the first 3 or 4 that come up.
Yeah.
There are gorgeous ones in Ireland. Like for me, the gorgeous ones. There's one in Cavan Museum. There's 2 in Cavan Museum. One of them would be quite grotesque. It's got a very blocky head. There's a similar one in Wales in another museum, and then there's one in the British Museum. And I'm pretty sure the same person carved all 3. So they all look very much alike. And then we did a survey at Tipperary in 2019, 2020. So whenever we were allowed to go out after lockdown, we had the project lined up and we went around to all of the sites in Tipperary. There's 27, I think, in that county.
I noticed that. That's the one with the most Sheela na gigs. Is that just because there's been the most study done on it there, or is there genuinely the most there?
No, genuinely the most carvings of Sheela na gigs happen in County Tipperary.
Like by a big margin, I'm pretty sure. More than twice to the next biggest one, I think.
I think you're looking at Roscommon is 12 or 13, depending on how you count them. And then I think there's no other county that comes close to those numbers.
Wow.
It's 2, 3 maybe in most counties that survive. Cork has a good few, but like Cork's a big county. I think they've got about 9, but a lot of those are actually missing, so we can't find them now. They're buildings destroyed over time. Tipperary's great as an example because no 2 look alike. They're completely different. They're probably, depending on the dates, you could be looking at about 100-year range of when these things were carved. So between the 14th and 15th century, the majority of them. Depending on how you classify them. So we call them exhibitionists because it allows you to stretch that classification. So an exhibitionist is a male or female figure showing their genitals. That's the standard classification of a carving of an exhibitionist. They occur right across Northern Europe, loads of them in England as well. And then Sheela na gig is just the Irish term that got recorded for that type of carving.
And Sean na gig for the...
Sean na gig was invented for the males then.
Maybe it's much more recent name. I know of one. I've only ever seen one. It's actually outside Mount Temple in Westmeath. It's in somebody's... It's in someone's... do you know the one? It's in someone's driveway. Yeah.
That is actually, to me, that is St. Peter. Because he's holding a set of keys. He's also holding something else in his hands. But he's holding a set of keys. And the iconography of St. Peter is he's holding the keys to heaven. Yeah. So there's a weird mix of Christian and then something that we would see as non-Christian going on the figures. To me, they're probably just Christian iconography that we don't understand anymore. Something probably from the 11th and 12th century, when the Normans came into Ireland at the end of the 12th century, they probably brought this idea with them. So the Nuns' Church at Clonmacnoise has a tiny figure. Some people call it Sheela na gig, some people call it just an exhibitionist. It's very hard to find it, but when you see it, it's a head on a chancel arch, which is kind of the altar arch of the church. And its two legs are wrapped around the back of its head. So all you see is the feet coming around the back of the ears. That's exhibitionist. There's another exhibitionist in Lay in Tipperary, very long, slender figure. Either comes from a door or again a chancel arch. So in the 12th century, some stonemasons in Ireland were carving these. Then your big gap is you don't really see them until the end of the 13th, beginning of the 14th century, up to the 15th century. And some of the later ones are 16th century. We have dated ones that have like 1729 on a bridge in County Clare. Now, whether that's the carving to 1729 or they moved it from the castle to the bridge, we don't know. But it is dated 1729, so you can say that's a 18th century carving. So.
Right. Where was it going? Here, there's actually one story I wanted to ask you. I'm very curious about this regarding Sheela na gigs. Are you aware of the I'm just reading the name. Are you aware of the situation of the Kiltnan Sheela in County Tipperary in 1990?
Yeah. So there was a Sheela na gig on the side of a church. It was noted that it was in danger of being taken, and very, very shortly after that, it was taken and it was moved. Now, this is not a small object. So you're talking maybe something that is 60, 70 centimeters by maybe 1.5 meters. It's a very big piece of stone, and the thing was carved on the full length of it. Supposedly the guards got involved. Supposedly there was a lot of the locals put up a reward for it. I think it was like 1,000 or 2,000 euros at the time, and
pretty nice in 1990 to be honest.
Yeah, and there was a very big investigation. No one has ever found that. There is a replica that was carved by a gentleman. He actually wrote a book on it. His name is O'Connor, and some people claimed that the carving that he made was the real one. I know people who've seen it, and I've seen pictures of the carving. They don't look very much alike. And I know where that carving currently is. So it's no longer in Tipperary, it's somewhere else in the country at the moment.
And you're not allowed to disclose that information?
I don't think I am, no. So I do know there is an RTE documentary on it, and I don't know if they disclose it there. But it's that person moved out of Tipperary and it's in their garden.
Yeah.
That's basically where it is at the moment. But likely that is the replica. I have heard stories that there is a carving in Italy that looks very much like it. It's like someone's gone on holidays and they're in a museum or in a very private museum of a rich person and they saw one. It's either in somewhere in Europe or somewhere in Italy.
Right.
It was shipped out of the country is most likely what happened to it. There are actually 2 at that site. The site is very private. It's owned by a very famous producer of musicals who has a lot of horses. And the church is on a public access from the land. The second Sheela na gig is well within inside the land, actually near the house. But there are 2 there, and it's just interesting. One of them is the one that went missing, the larger one that was there.
Yeah.
So
there you did mention the RT documentary. There is one, a radio one I heard recently. I tried to find it again on the way up. I couldn't find it. It was very interesting. But the funny thing is, I became aware of that story because I did a video on Weird Ireland about the Old Town Church Sheela. It's a really nice example. It's an interesting phenomenon. And people were commenting on it like, oh, don't give away the information of where these are because people steal these and sell them. And I mean, I don't, I wouldn't give a snarky response, but number one, that's all out there anyways. You'll find the location of, any of them online. Yeah. And then secondly, it led me to learn about that situation, how do I say this again?
I want to say it's Kiltetian, but I'm probably thinking of the wrong one.
Maybe. I'm not good at pronunciation.
It's outside of Fehard, which I probably am pronouncing incorrectly because I've been corrected on that before.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of miles outside of there, and there are 2. But if anyone looks up stolen Sheela na gig, that is the icon. If you want to draw an Irish Sheela na gig, that is the iconography that you want to be looking at. That's
Is it common for them to go missing?
That's the only,
So one of them has been stolen. That was was like it's famous from the 1990s. The others have gone missing, but missing because they're in antiquarian collections or we don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
So there's one in, I want to say it's Rochestown in Tipperary. It's a very odd looking one. I've had it redrawn for the Sheela and the Gig project. So it looks like it's got really long, really detailed hair, and it's kind of sitting above, or it's kind of squatting, and it looks like it's actually peeing at the same time. Very odd. We can't find the original. It is most likely exactly on the site it would originally ask. It's just overgrown now. There's some in the British Museum. There are some in private collections. I want to say there's at least 2. You classify them private collections. They can't be sold. They can't go out of the country because we have a protectionist law. But they are down as privately owned. So
Are the ones in the British Museum, would they be unknown over there, or is that...
no, they bought us. They bought a very large collection of stones from Ireland, and they own us as an artefact. So there's a lot of Irish artifacts in the British Museum because we were part of the empire at one stage. And likewise, we have things that don't belong to Ireland that are in our National Museum because there were antiquarians involved in setting up the original museums, the Royal Irish Academy, that they would have had these collections. So obviously repatriation is a big thing now, and there's a lot of discussion of that in museums. Sadly, in Britain, they're very much not into it, but Ireland and other countries are slowly repatriating things back to where they belong.
There's actually, of the Westmeath Sheilas, Old Topman Church, there's one in Moat, it's still above a house. There's one, I don't remember originally where it came from, but it's now in the British Museum.
That's the Clohan, I think is the official townland name.
Just outside Mullingar, that's Clohan it must be.
Yeah.
Like on the way to Delvin. Anyways,
It's around that area. But the problem is we don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
And we never will know where it came from. But that's the one that is very similar to the one in Cavan. And then the Cavan one is very similar to one that's in Wales. I cannot remember, or probably cannot even pronounce the place name.
Maybe not.
But it is in Wales. Certain ones are very iconic. The Roscommon one from Rahara, that has been on the cover of some of the books, and it's very iconic. It has French braided hair. And then there's one in Galway on a castle near Tuam, and that has French braided hair. And the one that Christy Caniff and myself I say discovered it. We were told about it.
Yeah.
It was always known where it was. It was in a person's house. But we were informed about it, and that was printed on the cover of Archaeology Ireland. That has French braided hair. So you can start to see there's an area around the country where these things are popular, they are being carved, and there's very similar themes between them. But yeah, I always find them an interesting artifact. It's something... The project slows down because it's hard to keep funding that. So generally, if I'm in an area and I know there's one there, I can record it. So there's probably 6 or 7 I haven't gotten to yet. But I was really lucky to get into the National Museums. That entire collection is done, and other regional museums. And most of the ones around the country are actually, if there's a site you can go to and you can see it in a building, it's already recorded.
And when you record these things, so going into like this digital archiving, is that the right way to put it? Digital archiving?
Yeah, it's probably the best way to describe it. Yeah.
So how when you're doing it, when you're digitally archiving a Sheela and a Gig, a physical, tangible piece of stone artifact, what is the process? How does that work?
So one of the processes called photogrammetry. That's something that anybody with a camera can do. You take a series of photographs, and the photographs have to overlap each other. Usually, for me, it would be anything between 100 and 120 for something around the size of a Sheela and a Gig, which you're talking about 60 centimeters by about 40 centimeters. You're taking about 100 photographs, and you're either walking around it or you're getting very close to it. And as long as the photographs overlap, photogrammetry software can stitch that back together. Anyone with an iPhone or a very modern Android phone can use something called reality capture, and that will do the job for them. That will actually, you send it off to the cloud, and the cloud sends back a 3D model, and you get a very detailed 3D model. If the public want to view them, we use a website called Sketchfab. So sketchfab.com, if you go to that and you just type in Sheela and the Gig or Sheela 3D, you will undoubtedly find our entire collection. That is a public viewer, and that's like an internet-based version. But MeshLab would be a free piece of software that you can have on your computer, and it's just a 3D viewer. So all the 3D model is ones and zeros, and any software that can open the 3D software. So Blender, 3ds Max, Maya will open it. So this Discovery Program, who are a national body national archaeological research body in Ireland, and they do some amazing work. So they've done all of Skelligs, they've done a load of different projects on coastal erosion and coastal archaeology. Your lovely little pendant.
I'm just showing me, you mentioned Skellig. I've got a Skellig beehive silver pendant. It's not the first time I've had to flash this in an interview because it does get brought up.
But it's such an iconic site, and it's such an interesting site. So they have what we call LiDAR, which is basically bouncing a laser from a plane down onto the surface of the earth, and then it bounces back, and we record the details. And each individual bounce of the laser is a point. So that gives you a point on the ground, which then you can join to other points and make a 3D mesh. That's basically how any sort of 3D modeling works. Points, lines, and then faces or polygons. So the Discovery program, when they use Sketchfab, when they release it, they reduce the size of their files by doing what's called retopology. So this is generally a cumbersome process. You have to generally manually do it, but with photogrammetry, you can actually reduce down the size. You get a high poly model, so one with lots of detail, and a low poly model, one with less detail, and you can kind of transfer the information from one to the other. So you get a picture that you can put over it. When we do it, I borrowed their version of what's called ambient occlusion, which is kind of like shadow mapping. Yeah. So it's black and white. And then you can highlight where there's depth, and you can highlight where there's something closer to the surface. That's generally what we put out there. We don't put textures back on, or we don't put images or color back on. So it's, like I said, it's a process that anyone can pick up. Now that technology has gotten to a certain stage, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your tablet, and reality capture is kind of the go-to. There are other pieces of software, things like Polycam that people can use. I use expensive computer-based software. So reality capture is one option. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't get a lot of control, and I don't get a really nice mesh out of it. So I use a piece of software called Metashape, or Agisoft Metashape, and that gives you way more control, way more detail. Again, designed to measure landscapes and do 3D model of landscapes, but as computers got better, that technology got better and more accessible. We also have, and thanks to the university here, ATU, we have a couple of laser scanners. So we have an Artec EVA laser scanner. And what this does, basically imagine the Kinect from a Microsoft Kinect, those 3D cameras that you used to dance in front of. There are two cameras, and there's a little light sensor. So on the Artec EVA, there's a circle of LED lights, and there's two spaced cameras. And as you move it around, it records whatever the light bounces off. And that gives you a 3D surface. And then we have building scanners. So we have a Leica BLK, which is like a little round box, put it on a tripod, press a button, and it sends a laser around the room and spins about, and again, records those. That's how we generate our 3D. More expensive technology gets you a more detailed 3D model. Less expensive technology gives you a basic 3D model. So
I'm glad to hear, because when you're talking about like the doing with you can make it with a camera or that kind of thing, I was like, damn, is that how it is? I kind of like like a scanning like a barcode scanner at a till. I kind of thought it was something like that, but really, really, really big for scanning an artifact. It just sounds like you do something like that.
They very much look like a barcode scanner. So the one we have here is like you tell students, okay, I'm going to show you this very expensive, very technical piece of equipment, and they pick it up and it just feels like cheap plastic and like a hairdryer, and it just looks like a Microsoft Kinect. That's all it is. So imagine two barcode scanners glued together end to end. That's what they actually look like.
Right.
And again, like the more money you spend, the better technology you get, and the more you can get out of it. I want it for metric accuracy, but I know people going out and they want to record a building or a site, and you can walk around it with your camera, just your phone camera, and it processes it up in the cloud, and you get a very basic version of this back. So if you're saying the preservation there is the preservation that the building existed, that's perfectly fine. If I'm saying, well, the preservation is the metric detail down to the actual mortar in the stone, that we can go in and we can zoom into that and redraw every pebble and every piece of mortar there. That's the type of stuff laser scanning and photogrammetry is used for in archaeology.
And because I know you studied heritage initially, yeah?
Yeah.
So how did you go from, were you ever doing archaeology like out in the field and digs, that kind of thing, or how'd you get into the digital aspect of it?
So by the time I graduated, it was that wonderful time of the crash, inverted commas. So I went working in Rathcroghan, where my parents were from, and I worked at an archaeological site, and I worked as a tour guide and an educational officer. After that, then I saw an advertisement for digitization, and Rathcroghan had been one of the sites that the Discovery Programme had kind of showcased this technology at. So they had done a lot of the landscape work, they had done a lot of the buildings, and during their archaeological digs there, we got to see a lot of that work happening. So I spoke to the guys in the Discovery Programme, asked them what they thought about the course that was being offered, and they were like, yeah, definitely go for that. So I moved to Scotland, trained for a year, and then came back here in 2014 and had nothing to do. So just set up Digital Heritage Age after that. So it was a case of there was no jobs. The industry was kind of falling. So construction industry had fell. So the archaeological industry had fallen behind us. Very little roles. But this was something I could go out and do with communities. And I could develop projects from that. And I could get small amounts of funding and develop my way through it. So Digital Heritage Age started in about 2014. We started in Roscommon looking at cross slabs. By 2015, we were doing the Sheela and the Gig project. And then after that, I moved to a company called RealSim, where I was making 3D environments for both planning and museums and kind of education. And I worked there for a couple of years then before 2019, 2020, I moved here to the university.
Is there many other people doing this type of digital archiving in Ireland like you, or is this, the one operation?
The Discovery Programme would be like a big body that are actually doing this, and they would take on very, very big pan-European projects. There's probably one or two archaeological companies doing it now. So any archaeology company, their GIS or their technology officer will most likely have these techniques. But there's less people working with community groups, and that's kind of where we focus. Because I have a full-time job as a lecturer, I get to pick and choose what I do. And working with communities is a lot more engaging, a lot more fun. So our kind of, we call Digital Heritage Age a research group. So Sheela 3D is a research project. We worked on a thing called the Palace Boy project, which was a project in UCC where they were physically recreating archaeological artifacts that had been found. So one was this thing called the Palace Boy vessel. No idea what it's used for, and that was part of the project. It's
Palace Boy vessel, is it?
Palace Boy vessel. So the place it was found and the thing it looks like. It looks like a vessel, or it holds something. It's basically, think of a baby's bathtub made out of wood. That's what it looks like. And there's maybe 4 or 5 of these in the National Museum. They're wooden artifacts. They're very fragile. So Ben Geary, Orla, Peach Power, who works with me, and then Mark, cannot remember his Mark's name, but he's this amazing wood carver from England, set up this project where they would recreate that. And they were recreating this vessel, and then they were testing to see what it could be used for. So could you fill it with water? Could you literally put it in water and then sail it across? Was it a coracle? Even somebody went and played drums on it as part of a musician's kind of experiment with it. That project then, so this is an Iron Age, so kind of 1 BC to so 500 BC or AD. That period, and around that period, you also get these anthropomorphic wooden figures. So if you go to the National Museum and what would colloquially be known as the Bog Bodies exhibition, there are some wooden figures that look like they have heads. Some of them have these cuts all the way down their body. Some people think they look like it's a ladder, so they're large grooves taken out. There was one of those found in Scotland. To tie back to Shauna's Victorian dildo, there was a lot of loose pieces of wood found around it, and there was a hole where its groin should be. So people used to say that like the loose wood around the bottom was actually meant to go back into the figure. So Orla, Ben, and Mark went to Scotland and they actually carved this. They got to see the original one, and we used laser scanning to record the original. We used laser scanning to record the replica. We've done a few of those now. There's a good few of those in Ireland. There was one found in Roscommon during a recent excavation, not too far from Rathcroghan, not too far from the visitor centre there in Tulsk. And they actually have a replica that we we made for them. So I think it's Archaeological Services, or AMS, I think is the name of the company. But Eve Campbell and Ross O'Moyledune from there were part of the excavation team. And again, as a in between lockdown projects, they found a nice big tree. They got Mark and Ben over, and we all went down when it was safe to do so. And we carved this giant, I think it's about 11 foot long.
Jeez.
Just has a head and a very long body. It took maybe 12 or 13 of us a day to make it. We don't think that's how it would have been made back in the Iron Age, maybe 2 or 3 people working over weeks. But these are totem poles.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, they're totem poles.
Cool.
And they're generally found in wetlands, mainly because that's the best place wood is preserved. They could have been in other areas. But they're in Ireland, Scotland, they're in some European countries as well. So that project kind of was looking at interesting things to do, and 3D was a way to record both the original and the new models as well, or the new physical replicas. We've done a log boat from Loch Corrib. That currently is, I think it's in Uachtarard.
It's in where?
Uachtarard. It's one of the villages as you go out into Connemara.
Yeah.
It was found between Moycullen and Uachtarard. And again, Mark came over. He made a very long, very, very long wooden log boat. And at the end of lockdown, we got someone to actually sit and try and sail it across the bay. It filled with water a little bit, but it would have been a pretty good boat. If you kneeled down and you paddled across, you would have got across the lake.
Yeah. Kind of waterworthy enough.
Yeah, and it's the idea is that we can experiment and we can test, and like that's the kind of fun side of archaeology. You can do things like this. My ultimate goal is to learn more about stonemasonry and then carve things myself.
I saw this actually. That's your current research is the role of masons in Ireland in the Middle Ages.
So the whole thing, again, it grew out of the Sheela na Gig project. People call Sheela na Gigs grotesque, unskilled, and that they must be folk art. That's one of the ways to just kind of push them aside and not really look at them. And I was thinking, well, it's not easy to carve a piece of stone. And some of these are really skilled carving. Some of them don't look skilled, but some of them are really, really skilled. So I wanted to look at the history of stonemasons in Ireland and how that skill developed. Took it from the 12th century, which is kind of a big building period. So if you think of the Rock of Cashel, amazing building, possibly built by English or German stonemasons. And those skills then spread out across Ireland. So we get this beautiful carving. And then 15th, 16th century, you get different styles of carving. 13th, 14th century, you get different styles of carving. So I wanted to look at those skills. And also I want to become a skilled stonemason.
We actually interviewed, you were there too, Shameen, remember Dom Kill?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was great. Yeah, we interviewed Dom Kill, Dominic Kill. It sounds like I'm saying Don Quixote there. Dom Kill, Dominic Kill in Manor Hamilton. He's a traditional stonemason up there. And I tell you, he could tell you anything about rock, anything about rock. The composition of it, what it's like to carve, the history of different parts of the country where they used it. He tell you all sorts about it. He's so great for that.
There's an amazing festival that happens on Inisheer called Féile na Gluck. So that is a stone carving festival, and you go out to the Aran Islands for 3 or 4 days, and there's just stonemasons everywhere. Some are building walls, some are carving little pieces. I went there last year to give a talk, and we went down, and it's just the sound of the chisels hitting the stone and this beautiful landscape with the stone walls everywhere. But it's held, I think it's the end of end of August, early September every year. And even if just to go out to Inisheer for the day and hear the noise of all these stonemasons working together. So I went out and just recorded a lot, just the sound of a chisel hitting stone. And what does that sound like? And what does different stone sound like as well? So I'm interested in experimental archaeology through that kind of digital aspect that we're able to record things, we're able to measure them, we're able to kind of say what they are. At the end of the day, the digital archaeology is a catalogue. It's the same as a group of photos. It's the same as a book that was printed. It's just something that you can go to and catalogue. And I worked on a great project with Tomás Carrageen from UCC and Paddy Gleeson from Queen's University Belfast. So Tomás wanted me to record cross slabs in the Clonmacnoise hinterland. So very much Meath, Westmeath, Offaly, Roscommon, parts of Galway, and looking at maybe a workshop that was happening there. So that was the digital atlas of early inscribed stone. And we did a couple of workshops with that. When I started Digital Heritage Age, I saw there was a collection of stones in Armagh Cathedral, and there's 3 little bear carvings. And I said, someday I'm going to go and do those. They're supposedly from the Iron Age, so again, at the same time as those anthropomorphic figures. But I got to do that last year. Got to go into the crypt and actually record everything. They've just been published on Sketchfab. So we finally got them all out. And a big collection of stones in the National Museum. So things like the Corlac head from Cavan, Tony Stack figure. Tony Stack, again, it's just a townland. It's not the name of a person. But they're very weird heads that anybody could actually carve, but we can physically date them to a period. So they become this kind of like, what's happening? Why are they carving heads? Why are they carving triple heads? And again, there's possibly a crossover between some early religion or early belief system in Ireland and early Christians, and either one copying the other, whether it's a continuation of the wooden carvings into the stone carvings, we don't know. But that's kind of Paddy's field of expertise. For me, these were just an amazing collection to go and get. It was nice to go and have to get the opportunity to go and record them.
You've got a great, I mean, it's clear you've got a great interest in heritage. Did this come from when you were growing up around, well, it was Roscommon Town you were rather from, was it?
Yeah.
Around Rathcrohan area. Does that come from then, or where did that first come from?
I'm not too sure where it originally came out of. So yeah, my house in Roscommon Town, you could see Roscommon Castle from there. So this beautiful 13th century castle. I grew up looking out my bedroom window at that. And my grandparents had a house in Rathcrohan, which is the royal capital of the west of Ireland, with all the stories of the Táin and Queen Maeve. So I guess you grow up with that. Initially, I wanted to be a journalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, trained in journalism. Went working for a local newspaper and realized very quickly I didn't want to be a journalist after that. And then came back and was just lost for a year or two. Moved to Galway, and it's the city of lost ambition.
I know. It's amazing. I got out of here actually because I went to university here. What do they call it? The Graveyard of Ambition?
Graveyard of
Ambition.
It's not. It's not really. It's an artistic city that if you spend long enough, you love it. But
Why do they call it that?
Because you go ahead and explain. Yeah,
I think it's you come here with great ambition, and then you just find yourself sitting outside Noctons with a pint.
That's where we're gonna find ourselves.
And it's such a wonderful feeling. You're there watching the world go by. This busy medieval street with hundreds of tourists passing you by, and you're there with these amazing friends. And it's a sunny day, which is very rare in Galway.
I tell you though, when it happens, holy God, it's good. Yeah, holy God.
It's a lovely sunny day now. We're looking out over
honestly,
the bay. Yeah.
It was described to me years ago as there's a lot of people who go to university in Galway and sort of get caught up in the social life here and just sort of end up never leaving it. And that's how it was put to me in a nutshell.
So, and then you're really lucky if your career brings you back here. So I was sitting around, I saw a course called Heritage Studies, which was actually here. It was originally GMIT, but it's in ATU. And I studied that for 4 years. The staff, the lecturers, the kind of smallness of the group was really interesting. So we got to know our lecturers. We got to be friends with them. And a few of them just instilled this love of Irish heritage. One lecturer told me before I left, he said, if you cannot find a job, create a project that somebody has to pay you for. So convince them that this project is so important and you're the only person that can do it. I'd gone on and done a master's in NUI Galway, and then I moved to the Glasgow School of Art and did my Digital Heritage Masters. And when I came back, that piece of advice was still there. Mm-hmm. If you cannot find a job, just make one for yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you have skills you can use, there are grants, there are people out there that will actually have money to spend. And that's how Digital Heritage Age actually started.
So what is most of the funding for? Is it government funding or how does it work?
Yeah, so county councils will have a heritage fund or an arts fund. Heritage Council will have funding. So usually we would partner with a community group. The community group would be applying and we would probably help them design the project. In recent years, the government have released loads of funding. So heritage has been very much underfunded for a long time. The last government moved it from, say, an arts and Gaeltacht department to a housing department. And kind of the colloquial about it was, well, 10% of their budget is a lot bigger than 10% of the other budget. So there was more money, and there was more recognition that there's a lot of climate change damage to sites. So we need to fund this. So there's loads of new strands to help heritage groups and heritage bodies that aren't community groups, that might be a state group. So ATU can apply to run a project, and we can bring something in and then hire somebody. So the last time we did it, we worked with islands out on the coast of Galway, and we wanted to show them how to record their own heritage. So again, giving back to the community group, something they want to do, something we know how to do, and then there's funding to link you together. And then there's always county council funding. So heritage is relatively well funded in Ireland. We would always say we could do with more money, but any sector could. But I think there's a recognition of what heritage is, and it's the sense of a local community. It's the sense of place. And it took me maybe a little while to realize that these aren't my projects I'm doing, that if I work with a community, it's not a digital heritage age project. It's their project, and they own that heritage, or they have a sense of ownership over it. And when we leave, we have to leave a skill behind. And that's what you're trying to do the whole time. Leave a skill behind you and take away what you learned from them. So a lot of the time it's access to a site. So in Tipperary, a lot of community groups would have helped us get into very private land. So you're talking about very rich horse racing country, a lot of big houses where there's going to be a lot of archaeology. And it's not exactly like you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody to ask for access. So local people will know somebody working there, and that's how the access works. So yeah, that's heritage for me is really the essence of Ireland. It's the essence of local communities. And every county has its heritage, the nation has its heritage, but every townland has its own heritage as well. And it's not for academics or experts to come and tell you what it is. It's the community to come back and say, that's our heritage. Like Weird Ireland, you find the little things, and they're locally preserved. Those stories are there. You might find some academic that will go to you, oh, that never happened. That's just a folk tale. But that's the essence of why we have preservation in Ireland, why farmers really care about monuments on their land, is because of that folklore and heritage and tradition that's actually there.
Terrific. I mean, and with the digital heritage age projects, I mean, people can access the stuff that's been digitally archived, and in theory, could they 3D print the Sheela gigs if they wanted to?
The Sheela gigs, no.
No?
So it's the only project we haven't set to download.
Oh, right.
I'm not quite sure why I did it. There was probably some sense of not just having anyone take these and then use them. So whenever we record something in the National Museum, the National Museum would own that recording. So you're given permission to come in, you're given permission to record it, and then you tell them how you're going to publicize it.
Sure.
People might want images for a publication on something that you actually don't agree with. Not necessarily on Sheela and the Gigs, but somebody might be writing something very fascist or racist, and they might use iconography of something from Ireland at a particular time. And I think Sheela and the Gigs was a project I necessarily wanted people to ask me for the copies, and I could see what they wanted to use them for.
Okay.
So we've been asked, could we use this on an album cover?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, that's fine.
I can think of one. There's a really recent one, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, it's got the bow. There's a recent one with the bow head.
Yeah. There's a couple of ones.
Yeah. Some of those ones.
But like, that's fine. But if somebody wanted to write a book on fascism and wanted to put a Sheela and a Gig in there, at least we have a control over that.
Yeah.
All of our other projects. So if we do a digital project in a particular county, that's 100% free, accessible, and downloadable. Again, we don't have any rights over that. The Sheela and the Gig, some of them are in public. We recorded them. There's no one stopping us to, like, someone saying you can't go to that church. You can't go to Merlin Park Castle and record the tiniest Sheela and the Gig in Ireland. But part of that collection is then state-owned. It's not state-owned, state-curated.
Yeah.
So we don't want to make those available.
They went to the writing a fascist book there. I don't know if this doesn't need to make the podcast or anything, but like it sounds like it was a request. Does this come up?
No.
That was just an example. I thought it just the way it sort of insinuated this happened or someone was.
No, I often use it as an example. So like you'll get someone who.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like it made sense to me.
No, it's not necessarily Sheela the gigs, but it would be. There'll be a site in Ireland and someone will make a statement that just has little twinges of something about it, and you don't really want to give them your photograph and be anywhere associated with that. So there are certain people out there that anyone can write a book, and sometimes
look at me,
but sometimes you want to go and you want to say, no, I don't agree with what you're writing. When it's album art or an artist wanting to use your work, that's fine. There's creativity, there's messages in there that you can agree with them. You can be left or right wing about something, but at the end of the day, you can't tell an artist their work is untrue. When someone's writing a book and they're basing it on what should be fact, you have a bit of control to say, yes, I'll give you this or I don't.
I want to ask you actually. One last thing I want to ask about was because you lecture here in ATU. No, I can't. It's GMIT. I don't know. Anyways, but you lecture in game design. What do you do? What do you do in that? That seems like a total. Is that related to what you do in general, or is it a total segue? Or not segue, non sequitur.
No, it wasn't. So I ended up working for a company that used gaming technology to make historical visualizations. So when I went to Scotland, the course was called Heritage Visualization. And part of that, we learned to make games to be able to tell heritage stories. So while I was there, the college had a commercial studio called the Digital Design Studio, and they made this really interactive game for the Battle of Bannockburn. And then when
cool.
I came, it's amazing. I think it's still open. It closed during COVID, but it was basically fully 3D characters, all mo-capped, and you could go and you could actually talk to a 3D avatar, engage with it, and then you went into the quiz, and then you played a tabletop game, which was all 3D. So I worked then for a company here in Galway that did very similar stuff for maybe about 5 or 6 years. And an opportunity then came up in the university to teach animation and game design. So I teach 3D primarily. And then on the film side of things, I would teach what we call reality capture. So 3D scanning, put that in a film for VFX. So if you think of, let's say, The Incredible Hulk, the 3D model that goes over the character, all the mocap that goes into it, the 3D modeling side of things is what I would teach, and the VFX of how to merge them together is another subject I teach here.
What software do you use here?
So we use everything that we have available. So Blender, Maya, and 3ds Max for modeling. And then we use things like Nuke and Maya for VFX. We have a massive virtual production wall. So if anyone's seen any of the recent Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, they're all filmed against a TV screen. So to dumb it down, a TV screen, it's a giant LED wall that is playing a video, and the characters are interacting in front of that. That's all run through a game engine called Unreal, and you can link it to your physical camera, so when you move the camera, the scenery moves with you. We have a giant virtual production studio downstairs here.
Cool.
So we use Unreal for that, which is a beast of a piece of software.
Are they still using that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's around since ever, is it? Unreal Engine, yeah.
They own everything.
Yeah.
So many games are made with like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like they own Fortnite and all those big games, but they a couple of years ago they bought a website called Bandcamp, which is a fantastic place to buy your music from. So if you know a small artist or even a medium artist, likely you can buy stuff for them.
That's a Bandcamp.
Yeah. And it's a great way of supporting people. But Epic, the main company that own Unreal, bought us, and that was kind of scary for a while. I think they've since sold it on because they realized they couldn't make a lot of money out of it. But they also bought Sketchfab, where we host all our models, and they're trying to migrate that to a commercial system. So we're in a place now where you can still find our models online. In a while, we probably have to figure out how to make them free through another server.
What's it called? Sketchfab?
Sketchfab. So sketchfab.com. And literally, if you put in Ireland, you will see there are hundreds, if not thousands, of 3D models of archaeological sites in Ireland now.
Cool. So they're actually totally related. You work with Digital Heritage Age and you're lecturing in game design here.
Yeah.
Whereas it does not sound like it didn't at the beginning to me sound it was going to be at all related. It's very much so.
Yeah, so like it's the skills I have in digital heritage is the virtual production side of that goes into what I teach. Like I say, digital heritage is very much research focused now. So we do projects. Next Friday, I'm going to Roscommon to go to the top of a castle to look at some really interesting stone carvings and record those.
Where was this castle now?
Sorry, not a castle, a church called Clun Shanville. And again, it's amazing community monuments fund. So big grant funds from the government allow us to take the ivy and then stabilize the building. And they are finding things that we've never seen before. So carvings on the top of the tower.
Cool.
And I get a phone call to say, would you come and do it? There's another site in Meath where they found some probably folk art, probably 18th, 19th century folk art. And someone just rang me and said, would you come and record these?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do now is I'll get a phone call and I'm like, yes, that sounds interesting. I'll come and do
I've
that.
actually got to show you. I don't know if you're aware, but there's some folk art just outside Ballylee, County Roscommon. I've got a video of it. It's not terribly well known. It's only 19th century, maybe 18th century, I think. I'll show you in case you're interested to see it.
Is this a famine eviction from a school?
Yeah, it's outside it was an old school, I believe. Yeah, and it's a abandoned building now.
I've gone looking for it.
I know. I found
never
it.
ever
I found it.
it.
I found it. I can show you to find it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think if it's the same stone, there is what we call an eviction stone, and it is the depiction of a house and group of people being evicted during the famine.
All right.
No idea when it was carved, but it's classic folk art. It's this wonderful scene on a really long piece of limestone somewhere. The only image I've ever seen of it is in Roscommon County Museum, which is in Roscommon Town. And again, that's a lovely place to go and find the Rahara Sheela. So you can see that purely iconic and probably one of the best carved in the country. Like people say Sheela are grotesque. This is a beautiful piece of carved wood. Or sorry, carved
Yeah,
stone.
I was about to
Oh God! If it
really
was,
go into that wood of wooden Sheela the gig.
If it was wood, it'd be amazing. We could rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah,
no, it's
but
stone.
that would blow the field off.
Yeah, no, it's stone. Sorry.
Look, Gary. Well, do you? I was going to wrap it up in a minute here. Do you have any more questions, Shameen?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Are you sure?
I only found out about this last night, so.
Shamey's just interested in all the digital technology.
I noticed you're just taking tips all day.
For later on.
Well, look, Gary. If you want to take time to plug what's the next activities you're doing, or Digital Heritage Age you're doing, or what you're doing this weekend, I know you're going to the theatre. Go ahead.
Oh God! Digital heritage are always looking for projects and always looking for communities to work with, and yeah, generally we're interested in teaching new skills and learning something new about a local area, something weird about Ireland. That's what we're looking for.
So digitalheritage.ie.
Digitalheritageage.com or you can find us at DHAge on all the horrible social media.
All right, Gary. Well, thank you very much for the interview there. I'm gonna show you my phone now in a minute. This rock art Roscomics is really cool, and I don't think there's any other images online of it. I want to also thank you, Shameen, for your input into this great conversation.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you, the listener, for listening. Thanks for listening, and see you somewhere else in the Weird Ireland podcast.